Hello again. In this video, I will cover a phrase that I used in the book Lost to the Races, two sides of the same coin. One of my favourite subjects is history. I'm not a historian, but it has taught me to consider the context in which things happen. One example would be wars. If you're looking at a war, possibly one of the best ways of understanding how the war happened is to understand the war that preceded it and the imperfections of how that concluded. Closely related to my concerns about the conflicts of interest that reside within the regulator-prosecutor model is my belief that it is not possible to understand the allegations facing John without understanding the catastrophic failings of the system of regulation, hence the two sides of the same coin. That is not to suggest that the FCA set out with the intention of harming clients. I do not believe they did. I will cover some examples which have been made public in documents. The first one, during the process of applying for direct authorization, John agreed to withdraw the application for client money permissions and subsequently added them to his letter of authorization that was received some time after. This was then used to mislead Barclays and Cases. In the meantime, John told the FCA that client money was held on another platform, Novia. Essentially, cutting and pasting an extra permission onto his letter of authorization is the way I understand it. So I guess that's a little more than perhaps a child forging a parent's letter or their signature on the letter to avoid going swimming or sports in general. Also, presumably, both Barclays and Cases, had they been alerted to what quite possibly were a series of very unusual transactions, could have just checked the FCA's register and noticed the discrepancy between what they'd been given and what was displayed on the FCA's register. Next one, during the authorization process, John concealed from the FCA a bankruptcy order from HMRC in the summer of 2018. Professionals can self-certify themselves as being fit and proper. No credit checks are generally required, and certainly weren't in this instance. So one would assume that if you had a person who was sitting on a very long-running and large fraud, they're unlikely to put their hands up and say, oh yes, I must tell you that in 2018 I was subject to this order, because the whole system would have unraveled. So you have to understand that this is the FCA's system. You can't understand the action without understanding the shortcomings of the system. 3, this is what I covered this quite a lot in the book Lost to the Races. And this I refer to the permissions that were granted to John as a result of the direct authorization process. Essentially, the FCA approved a structure where John held compliance oversight, and his money laundering reporting officer quite clearly lacked the expertise and experience to perform that role. It's what I referred to effectively. So essentially, if you can imagine, there was no credible independent compliance oversight. What I termed as the Potemkin Village architecture in the book Lost to the Races. These collectively, these are just 3 examples, but these in themselves would raise, these would raise eyebrows in even a frontier market, not a market that we're told is a world-class financial services market. So why is this important? And I'll try and explain this now. explaining this, I must return to the obfuscation tools of Time Zero and Prejudice, the investigation, which I've covered in the previous videos quite extensively. Collectively, these frustrate the accountability process, even via Parliament. What should be asked is, in the context of these allegations, how can we be sure that someone else has not attempted to do something very similar and isn't currently operating under that basis? Furthermore, how can we be sure that somebody else might not attempt to do these things and go on to operate on a similar basis? In the previous video, I referenced the all-party parliamentary group, and they're reporting to the FCA, and I noted in the scandals that they'd identified, such as London Capital Financial and British Steel, and there's one or two others, that we're almost looking at a rinse and repeat cycle where you roll from scandal into scandal. And when you look at the obfuscation tools that I've identified and the way that this frustrates any form of accountability and fundamentally fixing these problems, is it any great wonder that you do roll from scandal into scandal? Because you can never really get to fix a problem or be sure that it's been fixed. It's all very well FCA spokespersons coming out and telling us that the organisation has been transformed, and criticisms that are levied at it are a poor characterisation of how the organisation really functions. But how can we be sure? Where's the independent oversight for this? Who's conducted that outside the FCA with an independent mindset to say, yes, I'm satisfied that these issues have been solved and these allegations that have been raised could not be repeated, and there's no further examples of them out there currently. It just has not happened. In the next video, the last of the series, I will cover the FCA's secondary objective in the context of the WealthTek scandal. Bye for now.